In this third model, we will discuss what are the real estate sectors in which it's possible to invest. This is a general overview. Further down in the master classes, we will look at the individual sectors and the dynamics of each individual sector in more details. So now we start with a classification, a basic classification of real estate sectors. Most of us, when think about investing in real estate, will immediately picture in their mind the possibility of buying a flat, buying a house, and renting it out. Reality is that investing in real estate is much more complex. In general, the sectors are divided into traditional sectors, which are the sectors that have been traditionally the recipient of the largest flows of investments by international institutional investors. And then we have alternative sectors. These are sectors which have emerged over the last, primarily over the last 10 years, but that today represent 50%, almost half, cumulative, almost half of the investable universe of real estate investors. So now, what are the traditional sectors? First of all, offices. Offices are typically located in a central business district, or they can be found in suburban locations, in business parks. Offices can be either multi-let or can be let to a single company that might use it, for example, as the head office, and will enter into a long-term lease, providing a secure income to the landlord. The other big asset class is the residential. Now, when we refer to institutional residential, in some markets, like in the US market, we refer as multifamily. So here we are not talking about the individual apartment, the individual house. We are talking a block of apartments. It could be 25, it could be 30, 100, 200 apartments in a single block, managed by the same landlord. Retail. Retail is another important asset class for traditional investors. Again, we are not talking about the individual shop in the high street. Here, we typically refer to shopping malls, outdoor retail warehouses, or they are called strip malls in the US. Again, they could be multi-let. Typically, they are multi-let, although you might have a supermarket, for example, that is let to a single grocer over a long term. But usually, there is a single manager for the entire asset. And finally, industrial. Industrial assets are the properties used for manufacturing, or more often for storage of goods, manufactured goods, spare parts, which are part of the logistic infrastructure to deliver goods to the market. Now let's look at the alternative sectors. This classification, or the example that I give in this slide, is not exhaustive. I mean, there are additional alternative sectors which are important in today's marketplace, but we will discuss this in more details in subsequent episodes. So The first group of alternatives have emerged because of the digital transformation of our economy. So we have assets like big boxes, urban logistics, supermarkets, and data centers. So looking at the logistics space, when we imagine the manufacturing of goods and the distribution of goods to the market, to retailers, there is a whole chain, there is a whole infrastructure of larger industrial properties, which are typically located next to ports and airports. And then there are mid boxes, which are the interchanges, the motorway interchanges, where we further go to a regional distribution centers. And then we have the so-called small boxes, which is the urban logistics, located very close to the cities, which provide the last mile delivery for the investors. So this is why when we order today anything, radio or of mobile phone, within few hours this can be delivered to our doorstep. And of course there are tenants like Amazon that occupy these properties, and typically they occupy them on long leases. Another asset class which I like to put into the digital transformations are supermarkets. Supermarkets have been around for 30, 40 years as a standalone asset class. But why do I put them? Why the market has decided to include them into the digital transformation? Well, online grocery delivery has become a reality in our life, especially during this last 18 months of pandemic, when we have endured or we had to be at home. How was the groceries delivered to our doors? They were delivered from supermarkets. So supermarkets not only are the traditional place where you walk in and do your grocery, they've become literally urban logistics, part of the urban logistic infrastructure, where the delivery companies of the supermarket themselves go and pick up the groceries and deliver them at home. And finally, the data centers. The data centers are the backbone of the digital economy. We record, we have a video calls, we send emails, we transmit files. All of this goes via the internet. There are fiber optic cables that connect our houses to these data centers that elaborate the data and send them all over the world at the speed of light. And these data centers are occupied by the big technology companies or the big telecommunication companies. Microsoft, Oracle, Amazon themselves is a big provider of data center solutions to the retail market, and the telecom companies. So British Telecom, Deutsche Telekom, Etisalat in the UAE. Now, another big topic that has led to the emergence of alternative investments, alternative real estate asset classes, is the energy transition. So we have eventually realized that the continuous emission of carbon dioxide from burning fossil fuels has an impact on our environment. It can create an increase of the temperatures of our Earth, and can induce changes in the weather. but even most basically, it pollutes our cities, make them unbearable to live. So there is an overall concerted effort at global level to transition from finite fossil fuels to renewable energy. And this has an impact on the infrastructure. The infrastructure, guess what? It stays on land. So this has created the emergence of new investment opportunities for real estate investors. For example, solar and wind farm. If you have, for example, you own an agricultural land, you can install in some portion of that land a solar farm and a wind farm, and you can either operate it yourself or you can have an operator that will come and install, maintain this infrastructure and sell the electricity to the grid, to the network. And in some cases, there are companies that enter into power purchase agreements, which are long-term supply contracts with these renewable energy providers. Again, as an investor, this type of contracts will provide a secure, long-term source of income. At the same time, on next to, for example, your solar farm and the wind farm, you can have a battery storage unit. They are not, here we are talking about industrial battery storage infrastructure. Why these are required? Well, the sun doesn't shine all the time. The wind doesn't blow all the time. So the production of renewable energy from these sources is intermittent. So it makes sense to store it and to release it to the grid. And this has created an opportunity to build battery storage facilities. Now, within this energy transition, a number of investors have introduced green offices. So what is a green office? A green office is an office that doesn't consume, doesn't emit, or doesn't cause the emission of carbon dioxide. An office, and there are so many offices in our cities, have to be heated or cooled. How do you provide, do you source the energy? Well, you can either come from, this energy can come also from dirty sources, coal, oil, gas, okay, gas to a certain extent, or it can come from renewable sources. And green offices have become a major investment opportunity for real estate investors. Because if you have a dirty office, an office that uses energy derived from fossil fuels, the energy efficiency, the energy rating of that office will be very low. And the tenant will not want to occupy it. The landlord will have to retrofit it. And this will cause a cost. So the value of that office will depreciate very fast. On the contrary, an office which is fitted, first of all, with a good insulation and ventilation system, and is energy efficient, will be attractive. Now, the third theme that has developed, that has led to development alternative investment sectors is the sustainable urbanization. So urbanization has been going on for decades, for centuries. So, but as the cities were built, they became unsustainable. There were areas with excellent infrastructures where the rents and the prices were increasing and became less and less affordable. In some cases, the quality of life of the cities, because of the traffic, became unsustainable. So this has led to the identification of alternative investment sectors, so to the traditional apartment block. One is social housing or affordable housing. Okay, so not everybody in this day and age is able to afford an open market, to buy an open residence on in the open market, whether it's an apartment or it's a house. So certain forms of policy, certain policies have been introduced by governments to ensure that everybody, irrespective of their income, is able to live in a city. At the same time, a number of families have decided that living in the city center, it's really unbearable. So they started moving to the suburbs, okay? And they started looking at single families, single family home. The problem is that the cost of these homes has become unaffordable for many young families. So this has given rise to an institutional market for these properties. You might have like garden communities where these properties are available for rent. So it becomes a very interesting investment opportunities for investors who want to participate in the residential market and require large-scale assets to deploy their capital. Similarly, the education sector has stimulated the growth of a student housing subsector. 20, 30, 40 years ago, you wanted to go to university, you rent in another city, you were renting an apartment with other friends, and that was it. The dormitories, if you want, of certain universities were quickly filled up. So there was very much a private market, non-institutionalized market to cater to the student communities. But over the last 10, 15 years, a number of institutional investors have entered in a systematic way into this sector, and they have created standalone assets with a certain degrees of amenities and facilities that cater specifically for the students. Not only that, the operators of these assets have become quite well known within the university's communities and have attracted students with a promise of a certain standard of service. So it's almost become as a kind of hotel brand, which even to a parent, gives the assurance that their children at school, while they are away at school, are living in an environment where there is cleanliness, where there is security, and not too distant also from the university. And finally, another major theme that has stimulated the growth of alternative sector is the aging of the population. Now, this aging of the population is a phenomenon that affects both, if you want, Western countries and Asian countries, Latin American countries in general. And it is due to primarily to the improvement of the healthcare services. And we have discovered better ways of curing diseases. Our lifestyles are becoming healthier, so we are living longer. In particular, in European, mainly in European countries, but also in the North American countries, the time where individuals form a family, the age has become a bit higher. So people used to get married and start a family at 25 to 30. Now it becomes a 35, 40, 45 years old, which means that also the number of children that are born are lower than the past. And this combined with the extension of the increase of the life expectancy it's increasing the relative portion of elderly people in the society, and that has created a specific need of certain real estate. For example, primary healthcare facilities like hospitals and surgery and GP surgeries. So clearly, as the population ages, the need, the frequency of seeing a doctor increases. So we need more, certainly more GP surgeries located in proximity to the urban agglomerate. And the governments have at the same time reduced their investments in the healthcare service. So the private sector has stepped in and has taken charge of building these facilities and then leasing them either to individual doctors, association of the doctors, or to hospital operators. Secondly, the life science laboratories, where medicines are researched, the better cues are researched, and medicines manufactured. So there has been an explosion in the demand of laboratory space, especially as a result of the COVID pandemic, which has demonstrated what are also the benefits of investing in this sector. These laboratories are typically located in proximity to medical universities with a hospital attached. So it becomes an ecosystem. And for example, in the UK right now, it's very difficult to find a new laboratory to rent. So there is a rush of building laboratories in the so-called golden triangle between the Oxford, Cambridge, and London. And also senior living. So as people age, they might, and their children leave their home, there is a trend of either downsizing, while you are in a big house, if you are living alone or with your wife, husband. So, but at the same time, the need of care increases. So there are specialist properties dedicated to seniors, especially in the US. This has become a major theme, and these are not necessarily all the type of hospices. I mean, this can be normal flats with certain specific adaptation to cater for people that maybe cannot walk anymore on the stairs, and they need certain facilities in their bathrooms, or they actually have a dedicated medical teams on the premises. So these are called the skilled nursing facilities. So again, these are assets which are owned by private sector landlords, institutional landlords, and typically operated by professional operators that specialize in this sector.